Body Pitra, and we are trying something new again for the Thursday talk. So it's going to be a little different than last week and probably different again next week. But right now, we're going to start with an intro video and it's new. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get your notifications on. So I'm having a great day here. All right, happy Thursday and welcome to Pitranomics Thursday Talk. Hope you like that intro. I had a friend of mine tell me that my other one was boring and dead or whatever she said. I don't know what she said, but I'm trying to liven it up. I'm a little wired today. It has been a crazy day. It's been a crazy week. But tonight we're going to talk about Pitranomics and we're going to apply it to real estate investing. So we're just going to walk through and make it work. By the way, I am wearing my shirt. Hold on, let me show it to you. Righteous B today. And if y'all a member of the club, and I'm have to bring in some more members because I know more of y'all, it's all about being strong in your purpose and undeterring in your execution. So today we're going to use Pitranomics, how to apply it to real estate investing. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Now, we're going to try the thing we did last week, which is using the slides as a background. So give me a moment. I'm not perfect here and I'm having lots of good time with it. Oh, by the way, can somebody just drop in the comments what you thought about the new intro video? Could you hear it? Just give me your assessment because I'd love to hear it. Right. It's still preparing the slides. And also shout out to Shamir Winton for helping me with the slides. I really appreciate that so much. Her creativity. I know so many wonderful people. I'm just going to say it. My lifeboat is filled with wonderful people. And while we're waiting for the slides to come up, hey, Shantae, I love the energy in the video. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, one quick question, Shamir, it still says preparing slides. It's not showing anything. We're just hanging out in dark space.
Then maybe stop sharing and then reshare again.
We're going to stop sharing. Let's see, stop, try it again. Let's see. Wouldn't it be funny if that didn't work today? Because I loved your presentation. I might ask you to share it. Then I can't share it as a virtual. So sorry, guys. I had it downloaded. It's just not loading. Let's try one more thing. Shamir, can you share it? So I am going to stop sharing. Yay! Well, it shares for Shamir. It didn't share for me. Okay, so I'll just say when I want to change. Anyway, Pitranomics is all about using the strategies to grow, protect, and transfer wealth. And we've talked about some goals that I've had. Particularly, the one I talk about a lot is how my husband and I chose to raise our children and what we went through to get it. But today we're going to talk about real estate investing. And we're going to start with house flipping, which really isn't real estate investing to me. It's still a hustle. You're not putting the money at place, but the strategies work. And it's a way to build up capital, which is one of the strategies, accumulate so you can invest. So Shamir, if you can go to the next page, please. Thank you. So just take a look. Here are the 10 strategies. We're going to go through each one. The assessment, which is where am I? What am I trying to do? What are my goals? And what are my resources in terms of money, energy, and time? Then the next one, how to eat an elephant, is all about the roadmap. Who is in my lifeboat? Who's helping you? Who's along with you? Send your dollars out. You put money to work so it can bring more wealth to you in the future. Build your fortress, protect what you build. Pay Uncle Sam what he's due. Just amounts to don't overpay Uncle Sam, but don't avoid paying him what he's due. What are you leaving behind? It's all about legacy. But in this case, we're going to talk about what are you doing on that next iteration. We're talking about investing. Get professional help. Who is helping you make sure that all the things you're not proficient in doing are still being handled at top level? Snack now, feast later. Don't go overboard. Don't overspend. Don't blow your budget. And then the Joneses don't have jack is you never measure your success by somebody else. You always stay focused on your own path, on your own roadmap, on your own progress. That is how you succeed, not looking at what somebody else is doing. So next slide, please. All right, how do we use the Pitranomics strategies to invest in real estate? Now, first of all, to me, real estate investing or any kind of investing is buying an asset of some sort that returns money to you. First, the return of your investment, and then some kind of profit. Real house flipping is basically a job. It's a job like any other job, because as soon as you've done the first one, you're done. You got to go do something else to get more money. So there's no way that's truly an investment because it doesn't bring you residual or passive income over time. It's a one and done. But like I said, it's a good way to get started. Shamir, next slide, please. I can't believe I can't do this myself. Okay, when you talk about assessment, where am I? What am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? When it comes to house flipping, it is very important to understand what you're trying to accomplish. So let's say you decided, you're looking at your spouse, hey, let's flip a house. It's not really that easy to do. It's not impossible, and you can do it with proper planning and flawless execution, and then it's great. So let's start with, I want to flip a house. Well, what price range? How much do you want to make from that flip? Are you looking for a $10,000 return? Are you looking for a $100,000 return? Because that's going to navigate you to the price range you're going to try to flip. And what are your resources? You have to have money. Everybody understands that. Or at least I hope you all understand that. It is almost impossible to flip a house and not have any of your own money starting out. Now, once you've gotten good at it and built a reputation, you can find other investors to assist with you. But just starting out, it's time to pony up some of your own money. The energy, you have to have the focus and you have to have the will, because flipping a house is not for the faint of heart. Unless it's the most minor of renovations, it's going to go wrong in some way. And you have to stay strong in your purpose, even though it's jumped off track. And then time, if you've got a full-time job and you've got kids and you're like, I'm going to try to flip on the side, you can't do that without having a very strong team of boots on the ground where that house is. But if you're starting out, you don't have that. You're learning. So the one thing I would say is expect this to be a learning experience, expect it to throw you down some, and maybe you won't make a lot of money on the first one. So like, for example, I have some clients closing on a flip house and the guy did an amazing job. I was like, hey, let's do it again. You should do it again. And he was like, well, we didn't make much money on this. And I said, well, that's good. You didn't lose money. So it's success. It's the educational part of getting ready to do this. Never let it be said that the first step has to be perfect in order for success to follow. Go ahead and plan on failing, messing up, whatever that first step, maybe even the second step. My own foray into investing, that wasn't flipping, but investing in Texas. The first one went horribly awry, and the second went somewhat awry. So I feel better now about doing it, but it's never going to be perfect the first time. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, map out your project. How do you eat an elephant? It is truly one step at a time. And you know what, Shamir, I need to find the notes because I actually had some notes about what I want to talk about. So if I go off script, let me know. But anyway, if you're going to renovate a house and it's extremely distressed, start with the top 5 items that everybody needs to check out before you start making it all pretty with the flooring. Make sure the foundation's intact. Make sure the HVAC is working or you need to replace it. And by making sure the foundation is intact, you might have to do some leveling. You might have to do some replacement. If it's a house like pier and beam, you might have to replace a whole bunch of it because that does deteriorate over time. So you've got your foundation, you got your HVAC, you got your electrical and your plumbing and your roof. These are your big 5 structural issues that you need to address in every flip. Doesn't mean you have to do something about them, but you need to make sure they're fine. And you need to use licensed professionals, plumbing and electrical, and you need to use those with experience on HVAC and roofing. I mean, some guy that says, yeah, I can put it in a water heater for you, that's not going to cut it. And preferably those professionals need to have experience in working with the inspectors in the area. So I'm going to tell you, most new flippers are like, we don't need to get inspections. We don't need to get permits. We'll just do this behind the, like underneath the board or whatever that expression is. I can't think of it. And then they go to sell that house and the inspector that the buyer surely is going to hire is going to find all sorts of problems and you're not going to have that licensed or experienced person behind you. So I would say have that out. Once you get the structural issues taken care of, and you should plan for this in your budget before you get started. So let's say, for example, it's a 2-story house and it's about 3,500 square feet. First pass, I'm thinking 2 zones of HVAC. Plan for it. You might have to replace it. My very first flip, the HVAC was working fine when I bought the property. Wouldn't you know it, when I went to put it on the market, both systems failed. And I bought 2 HVAC systems when I thought I was done spending money. That really bit into the budget. But it was a good learning experience to go ahead and plan for that in the beginning. Have it in your budget. Here's where a lot of people go wrong. Some of them don't take care of the structurals. And then even if they do, they don't allow for enough money because there's going to be something that goes wrong. So let's say you're putting in new flooring and they're like, oh, the house has 2,400 square feet. I'm going to put in 2,400 square feet worth of flooring, and that's all they buy. You need to allow for at least 10% spoilage, at least 10% spoilage. And if you're using more than one type of flooring in the house, it might be a little more because stuff happens. You get a shipment and it's not quite right, or you have to cut it a little differently. You have corners and curves. And so you're wasting a lot of material because you're not usually dealing with a perfect rectangle. And then you have fixtures and faucets and light fixtures and all of this stuff. And then you might decide in the middle, which I've seen and I've done, you know what? It would be cool to add this really expensive stove and some granite in the middle of a process that you didn't plan for it. And so let's say you decide you want to put in granite, but you'd already planned for mica. Well, it's going to take you a little bit longer. Somebody has to come and measure, and they might not be able to come right back out. The house that I did in Paris, I was trying to get somebody to do it, and the local fabricator was like, it'll be 6 to 8 weeks after they measured. Well, I couldn't wait for that. So I was scrambling to get somebody else in here to do it. Thankfully, I did, but those are the kinds of things that happen. And you have to plan for contingencies of money and of time. So if you don't get it done in the time period that you planned, are you still going to get the price that you need? Is it still going to be prime selling season? Summer really is the best time historically to sell a house. And after that is right around Christmas. But if you're deciding you want to sell something in November because your project's gone over early November or September, you're probably not going to get the same prices. And so the price you've anticipated getting, by the way, I skipped a process. Back in, before you even get started, you need to map out how much am I going to get for this house once I finish it to a certain level. That's called your ARV, or your after repair value. It is time sensitive. It is finish out sensitive. It's market sensitive. So it's really important that when you're building out that project, you know how long it's going to take you, so you can anticipate at what point in your market cycle you're going to bring that house to market. Because it's never when you start, it's when you finish. And if your project goes off kilter, then you're not anticipating the right time to sell it. Okay, go to the next slide, please, Shamir. Thank you. Who is in my lifeboat? It is really important to have the right team when you're doing a flip. I was scrambling to get these people in during the process, but I have a fairly high risk tolerance when trying something that I know there's a chance of failure. But let me just give you some hints. Have a good insurance agent, because the cost of your insurance to do this project may be higher than you think. And also that insurance agent can help you understand what a typical buyer's insurance policy is going to be like, so you know where the cost to your buyer is going to be, because there's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance in their PITI. You want to have an idea of how much that insurance is going to cost your buyer, so you know roughly what their payment's going to be, and you know if you're going to have a wide pool of buyers for that project. A real estate agent. Now, according to social media, at least the stuff that comes across my page, there's a lot of hate on real estate agents. You know, they don't add any value or whatever, but a good one is worth their weight in gold. So find you a good one, find someone who knows what they're talking about as far as selling a flipped project, and make sure that you listen to the professional you hire. I can't tell you how many times you have a good cadre of professionals, but then you don't listen to them. And it's like not having them. So, and a lender. Unless you have cash sitting around to fund the entire project you're about to undertake, you're going to need some kind of lending, private lending, banking, or whatever. And they're going to be looking at you to see, do we trust you to finish this project, bring it in on time, and sell for a profit, and pay us what we need? And they're going to be looking at the project. Do we trust that this project, handled by anybody, is going to result in an easy sale so we get our money back when we plan to? Because if you don't finish when you're supposed to, the lender probably has tacked on some extra charges. Fortunately, my first project, I paid cash for the house. I paid for the renovations cash. And thank goodness, because my first renovation budget, the renovation budget on the first house I did in Texas was more than double. So I'm glad I had that extra cash. Contractors. What should I say about that? I don't believe that I, as a house flipper, should be working in the house. That's my own personal value for me. However, if you're going to do it, make sure you have the time and energy to do it when you take care of your other commitments. But if you're going to hire contractors and you're brand new, this is where a lot of this stuff goes off the rails, because you don't know, you don't have the experience to know if the person that's doing the work for you is actually legitimate and valid in what they're saying. My very first project, I hired a guy that had been highly recommended by the real estate and educational group that I had joined. And he had been so highly recommended that so many people were using him that he wasn't able to keep up the way he was supposed to. And then he was hiring project managers that weren't any good. And I got one of the not good ones. And he and I were like oil and water lit. We did not work well. So I fired him, and then I tried somebody else. And it was a GC. They did everything. They took care of everything, but I was there trying to learn. I mean, I wrote out, my first house was in Grand Prairie, and I was driving out there 4 to 5 times a week from Frisco. It was a long drive, and usually in a lot of traffic, but I did it because I wanted to know what was going on. That, by the way, I'm just going to throw them out there. That the name of that company is Finishing Touches, and the owner is Blake something. Sorry, I cannot remember his last name. But I have done 2 projects with him, and I have seen his work in other projects. For a brand new investor, I feel comfortable based on those experiences years ago to recommend him and his organization for a brand new investor working. It's up to you to make sure the communication is intact, but their processes and their execution, their project management, and their trades, all solid. So now your business partners. A lot of people start out with a JV, joint venture, on their first flip. Let's see, not on my first one, but I did joint ventures on other flips. They didn't work out for me. And for a lot of people, they didn't work out for. I'm not saying not to do it. All I'm saying is perhaps you don't get 2 novices on the same project. You joint venture with someone that knows what they're doing. And then you might have to bring a little more to the table, but you have access to somebody that can teach you. And then it's like, etc. There are many other things that might occur to me to add to this list later, but use this right here. This is a start. If you want to flip a house, talk to a good insurance agent. How do you find one? Find somebody that's doing flipping successfully or house renovation successfully and talk to them. Who do you use for an insurance agent? Chances are they'll share that name. Find a real estate agent that is good with supplying you with the ARV, which is after repair value, and knows how to ask you the right questions to get you to understand what you need to do to get that ARV. How do you need to get that house renovated to get the ARV they're suggesting you? Lenders, most really successful flippers and real estate investors will share their lenders. But when it comes to contractors, probably not. They might not share them. So I shared one. I think he's great and he had good economies of scale, but the actual tradesmen that I work with, I share them among a pretty tight group because we're switching stuff back and forth. But I don't sit there and say, hey, use this guy. No, I will say as a newbie, Finishing Touches is great. And then keep doing it because you will make the relationships with other trades. And business partners, get a lawyer. Before you joint venture with anybody, get a lawyer. If you're new to this, please get legal help. And I think I'm done with that slide. Unless there are any questions, but Shamir, go to the next slide. If anybody has any questions, throw it in there and somebody let me know if they're there. So send your dollars out. When we're going to talk about flipping in particular in real estate investing, something will go wrong, or it will go long, or it will just go completely in a different path than you intended when you started. I think a good rule of thumb is to have 30% of your total budget in your hands in cash. I know people do it differently. This is just my recommendation. Just in case something goes wrong, you have a little bit of a cushion. And the problem is when you're new, you don't know what you're missing. So there have been a couple of times when I've been asked, hey, will you evaluate this job and write a scope of work? And by the way, I'm great at telling you what you should do. I'm learning to be better at how to write the scope of work for a hard money company. Those are 2 different skills because you get paid by what's on the scope of work. So you can run into a cash flow problem if you don't write that scope of work, which of course I have done. That's how I know. But just to make sure you have enough cushion, 30%, that's the minimum of the total project cost. That's if you're using a hard money lender, you need to have available. If it's your first time and there's a chance this project could go awry, and you can tell because the more distressed the house is, the more chance something could go awry, 40%. Have that money in your pocket just in case something goes wrong, because you don't want to be in the position that something went wrong and now you can't finish and you've lost every cent you put in. Because if you can't finish, how do you sell and make the money back? And by the way, remember, you are putting your money to work. I believe you shouldn't be out there swinging the hammer or laying the tile or putting shingles on a roof. Commit to the investor mindset. Commit to, I'm putting my money to work to bring money to me. I'm putting my money to work in a strategic way so that I can have money coming to me. And I want to repeat that process. But if you're taking time to do the actual work, you're not spending enough time thinking about how to put the money to work because you only have limited time. All right, next slide, please, Shamir. Build your fortress. When you're doing a home renovation, generally it's vacant. Generally, you're bringing lots of new stuff in there. And so it looks like a shopping extravaganza for thieves. They will come in and steal stuff. I'm not saying it's if you will ever have something stolen from a job, it's when. And it can be pretty devastating if you get to the final end and you put your appliances in, and then somebody comes and takes all your appliances, strips the copper from your job, decides to take tools or whatever. And the other thing I want you to remember is sometimes the people working on your job or their friends might be the ones stealing. It happens. You don't know these trades if you're just starting out. And even the best general contractors will sometimes have a bad apple, and somebody will conveniently forget to lock a door or set an alarm, and then you have all this stuff gone. Theft of tools, theft of materials is very common in home renovations. So you need to go back to that insurance agent, make sure it's covered. You need to make sure your guys are doing the proper procedures to make sure the home is secure. And you need to go over there regularly to confirm. Okay, so, and then the other part is stay on top of your material sourcing, because that is a way things can go really off track. So just today, I did my first quote with Home Depot. I'm not just buying a bunch of product. I submitted a list. It was a huge list. I saved nearly 23% on the cost of the materials by doing a bid room where I had like a whole bunch of stuff. And so since it was about 20,000 worth of materials, that was material. By material, I mean it was significant. I won't use the same word. I saved a significant amount of money on my materials. So hold on, I got a question here. What is a good time to get ROI? Can I get a little clarification? Can you unmute and tell me what you mean about that, please? So I understand that question, because I want to make sure I address it.
Okay, how is everybody doing today? I'm Evan Muhammad. My question is, like from time you start your project to the end of your project, and you put your house on the market, what is a good time to look for getting a return on your investment?
When you close on the sale and you get your money in?
Exactly.
It's really going to depend on the size of your project. I would say a standard 24 square foot house, you should be able to knock that out in less than 60 days. You should be able to do it. Newbies don't tend to. My first flip took me 3 months. I don't know why I chose to do a 4,000 plus square foot house on my first flip. That's the one where both air conditioners went out right before listing. And then it ran a little bit longer than I thought, and closing took longer than I thought. So I put it on the market in, I think, November, maybe October. And I priced it too high because I listened to somebody that said, no, I had come up with an ARV. And then I listened to somebody else say it was a lot higher. By the way, it sold for the price that I thought it would. So in the future. And then I ended up taking it off the market for Christmas because I was tired of, messing with it. I put it back on the market right after New Year's with a lower price, and it sold. I did not have a hard money loan on that, so it wasn't as pressing in my mind to get it sold. But when you have a high cost of lending, you're like, gotta get it done, gotta get it done, gotta get it done. When it's the money that's just sitting there anyway, you tend to like lay back in the buckwheat and relax a little bit, but adopt that mindset on everyone. On a smaller house, you really should be able to get in, get it fixed up, and if you price it right, get it sold in 3 months from start to finish. However, David and I saw a house where They closed on, what was that, David? December 30th? And they had that house listed January 14th. And that's with adding square footage. So it went from a 2-1 to a 3-2 in less than 2 weeks. So those are goals for me. I don't have the system to do it like that just yet, but since I saw that it was possible, I really want to be like that one day, where I can get that house flipped in 2 weeks. Now, it was a small house. It was about, I think, 930, 40 square feet. And then they took it up to probably just under 1,200. So it wasn't that big, but 2 weeks, both of us were highly, highly impressed. Now, my first flip took 3 months to get done, but from start to sale, it was about 6 months, 7 months. And it wasn't a great return on investment. I didn't make a lot of money. It was a lot of work. I didn't lose money, so there's that. I have lost money on flips. Every single flip that I lost money on was with those former business partners. So there's that. To the next slide, please. By the way, back to business partners. If you're going to do it, I talked about getting a lawyer. Before you get an attorney involved, make sure you have a conversation, which is really hard for new people to do, about who's going to do what, who's in charge of the money, who's on title, how do you protect yourself, what do you expect that person to do, what do they expect you to do. That has to be a listening conversation as well as a talking conversation, which I don't think I did well. I went into that partnership with a lot of trust, and I don't trust people as much as I used to. Is that in this industry, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a thing. It's how it is. I got burned so badly that I do whatever I can not to. Doesn't mean I don't get burned, but I'm not trying to get burned that badly. Okay, so when you're doing a flip, for the most part, and you got to talk to your CPA about this, that is considered active income. So those of you need to realize who are doing that, what does that mean for you? What are your taxes on that? What are your federal taxes? If you're in a state where you have to pay state taxes, what are your state taxes? If you're in a municipality where you have to pay city taxes, what are those? Are you going to have to pay Social Security and Medicaid on those taxes? That's going to depend on you individually. So you need to speak to that CPA, that tax professional, as to what the impact of your profit in flipping is going to be. It is harder to mediate that more so than it is to do the buy and hold. So right here, how do you need to save 40% of your profits. You never know what your tax burden is going to be. Just go ahead and take that windfall, assuming you get a windfall, and put it away. And document all of your expenses. You can do it on a spreadsheet. You can do it in QuickBooks, but it's just important that you do it. All expenses. Track your mileage. Keep up with your utilities. Keep up with your other soft costs. Make sure you account for materials that you buy and materials that you return. All of that, theft, loss, all of that has to be tracked, because those numbers constitute the cost of the good you're selling. And then you sell it, and you're going to have costs associated with selling it. And so your net proceeds less the cost of the good you just sold, the cost of the asset you just sold, that's going to be your profit. And you're going to want to be able to verify those numbers. And then based on that profit is where you're paying your taxes and everything else. Now, I am not any kind of tax expert. I don't know if people have to pay Social Security or whatever on that. So make sure you consult with your tax professional before you get into the project. It's a quick consult, maybe an hour, because if they're well-versed in real estate investing, they're going to be able to walk you through what it is you need to do. And we have a question, just a minute, what is this? How do you handle lawyers in JV ventures? Do you go to one lawyer or two? Well, if it's a partnership between two people, I would say both parties should be talking to their attorneys and then saying, hey, what do I need to look out for? I didn't do that when I went into my first, that prior JV with those business partners, and I trusted that they were handling things, and that's wrong for me. But for those that are in a partnership with me, I do my very best not to screw people. That's just who I am. However, I don't always understand what other people understand about the conversation that we've had. So my biggest thing is communication has to be intense and ongoing. I have personally just been very surprised. We've had a conversation and I'm talking to someone and they're saying, well, I thought this was going to happen. And I was like, I don't know how you thought that. So the biggest, if you assume people are good on both sides, the biggest source of discontent comes from a lack of good communication. In my case, I really believe they were out to take me. So communication wouldn't have helped. I think they saw me as the fatted calf to roast and feed on. And that still rankles. I don't know if you could tell, but I don't believe in doing that to people. But I still know that communication is the biggest problem. So one of the things that can happen about going to your own attorney is you can get some framework on how to talk to that other person about the project. Now, that said, I wish I had gone into a project with a mentor. Or yeah, I wish I had said, hey, you know what? I'll bring money too, but I didn't. I mean, I had great mentors. I have been really, really blessed with that, but I didn't go into a partnership with a mentor, which I wish I had done that. About JVs, before you even talk to the attorneys, let me suggest this. If you don't know them really well, you get a PI, investigate them, which I did after the fact, not before. Found out some stuff that might have given me pause, didn't know. Talk to mentors and other successful people, successful at joint ventures, and say, what is it that you look for? What is it that you have done to make sure your joint ventures are going well? Ask them what has helped them, and then talk to the attorney, because you don't want to waste the attorney's time and your money talking in a framework that's not useful to the endeavor. But I do believe in seeking professional help, which is a strategy in Pitranomics. So for example, the CPA that I use, he's not just a regular old run-of-the-mill CPA. He is a forensic accountant. And he has this saying, he said, when 3 conditions exist, fraud is likely. He called it the fraud triangle. And the first one is access to the funds. The other is some kind of pressure, some kind of need to access the funds. And the other is the ability to rationalize that it's okay to take funds. And in the case of my former business partners, they didn't have to work for access. I was handing over large sums of money. Dumb me, right? So they had the money, not just access, they had the money. And then as far as the pressure, well, when the transactions weren't going well, they needed money. They didn't have other reserves as far as I know. And then their rationalizations, they even told me this to my face. They were like, well, you have a husband to support you and this is all we do. Now I know that's a red flag. I'm like, just because it's not making money and just because I have a husband that provides very well is not a reason for you to take all the money. I realized that's what they thought. Oh, she has other resources. And let me say one thing. I have heard that from other people. Well, they have other resources and I needed more. And I'm like, but it's not your freaking money. When you go into an agreement, and this has kind of happened to me recently, when you go into an agreement and you're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And then you're like, well, I don't have the money for it. And so I'm just going to change my mind about how this goes. You're damaging that relationship irrevocably. Because for me now, I'm sitting there going, I'm sorry you're having difficulty, but you can't just assume I'm going to pick up the bag because I can. That's not fair. And how do you assume that I can't? Maybe I can't. You don't know my burden. That kind of mentality, as soon as you sense it in a potential business partner, cut them out. Can't work with them. It's going to go wrong. If not the first time around, the second. And I'm not deviating from that. I believe it. Watch the value system of the people you're trying to invest with. Okay, enough pontificating. Next slide, please. What are you leaving behind? In this case, what are you going to do with the proceeds? When you go into doing a flip, you plan to make money. You plan to make a certain amount of money. You need to know what your plan is for that money before you start. Don't just go in there and be like, whoo, what am I going to do? Are you going to reinvest? Are you going to pay down some bills? Are you going to blow it because that's what you want to do? In the event of a loss, how are you going to handle it? Do you have some other losses to offset? Are those losses going to be able to offset gains? Or are these gains from this project going to be offset by other losses? So tax strategy. Are you going to reinvest it into another property immediately? Are you going to have an exit strategy of that flip that maybe turns it into a financial asset for you? Because one thing you can do with a flip is to own or finance it and turn that hard asset, that real estate, into a financial product. That's still flipping, but now you've done something with the money. And may I suggest you talk to your CPA, and if you have a mentor, and please have a mentor on the first time, talk to your mentor about what's a good strategy once you have that money in your hand. Have it before you start your project, because there is a very, very big tendency to make a pile of money if you're successful and blow it. And then 3 months later, you're like, what did I do? So have a plan. Take that money and put it to some kind of use. And the use could be pay bills. A use could be, you know what? A use could be blow it. I'm going to have a big party. And if that's what you plan in the beginning and you're successful in your project and that's what you do, I consider that amazing. There's no judgment about what you do with the money as long as it's what you intended and you're successful at your immediate goal. Next slide, please. Get professional help. Okay. When you're starting a new and expensive venture like house flipping, because it's expensive, your trades should be experienced. Insurance agent should be experienced with that type of thing. Finding a real estate agent that's experienced in dealing with flips, also great. Lenders that know how to lend something that's advantageous to you, as well as making money for them, great. A great title company. You know what? I don't know if I put that on the list. I may not have told you that, Shamir, but if you're going to flip houses, you need a great title company. Sorry, you need a great escrow agent at a good title company that works for you. I work with a great one. He's fabulous for me. He has been in business with me now for years. He knows the kinds of things that I'm looking for. He gives me a heads up. And by the way, I'm closing on a house on behalf of clients. I didn't use my title company because I was using the one the seller wanted, and something came up with the title commitment. That good relationship I have with that escrow agent, I shot it over to him and said, hey, can you help me understand what this is? Because I don't really understand what this means. Reading title commitment and understanding title issues, that's not my forte. I don't need to have that skill, but I need to have access to someone that has that skill. That's the importance of professional help, because there's no way I'm going to know everything about every aspect or every contingency in this venture. So know the people that are probable to know. And that's assemble your team and then find a mentor. So I'll tell this story. My husband and I have an investment advisor. And I was like, hey, I want to do real estate. This was back in 2015. And he was like, great, get some education. And I was like, no, I think I'm just going to play with some money and just do something. And he was like, no, get some education. Since he had been so profoundly impactful in other ways, I was like, hey, I'm going to go get some education. So I joined a real estate educational group, learned some things, got really excited about it. And then before I did the first house, we invested passively in some multifamily. Turned out well. I was like, okay, in the middle of that, let me jump in and try my first property. So I was glad to have found that mentor. He guided me into real estate. And I've had a couple of really good experiences with mentors since then. And here's the thing, mentors can be for a season. Sometimes they're just with you for a certain stage and then you get another one. Sometimes they last years and years, and maybe sometimes they last forever. But as you're growing, you want to make sure your mentor is steps beyond you because they're guiding you where you haven't been. So add to your mentors, become a mentor. One of the best ways to be a good mentee is to become a mentor with something you've already learned, because then you learn to appreciate, oh, this is what I need to do for my mentor. And that enriches that relationship so you continue to grow exponentially. So I should ask, become a mentor. And by the way, I feel like I'm sharing some things I know about Pitranomics and that strategy. My husband and I have been married 26 years. It's not 45 years, but it's, we're empty nesters now. So I feel like I have something to offer people who are starting out and coming behind me. But as far as how to stay married successfully in retirement, and once you're an empty nester, got to consult with some other people because I'm not there yet. Right? I'm just starting out. That's a new transition for us. And I don't mind listening to other people who know more than I do. All right. Next one, please. I think it's just one more, right? Or is it two? Oh, we got more than that. Snack now, feast later. This is a great strategy to add to your house flip, because here is what most people do. They're financially comfortable. They live in a great house. And they're like, I'm going to do a flip. But chances are they're buying a house that's not in the same price bracket as what they're living in. So they might live in a $900,000 house and they go buy a $200,000 house that maybe they can sell for $350,000, and they want to put all the stuff they might have wanted to put in their house in this house. They over renovate and they lose money. So do not overspend. Make sure you're taking advice from the right people about how to renovate that house for that market, for that buyer, for that time. And be strategic about it. Be strategic about the purchases that will help your property sell. If we go back to the first flip that I did, and I can't remember the address, but it was on Havant Lane in Plano. I wanted to make my house, I wanted to paint my house with all white cabinets and do some wonderful travertine on the fireplace and blah, 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 this and this and that. Now, I really liked it. I probably should have just moved in, but it wasn't necessarily appealing to the demographic of buyer that was buying in that area. I got several cases of feedback. This was back in 2016, 17, whenever it was. They're like, why are these cabinets white? Whenever I cook and it smokes, they're just going to get dirty. I don't want white cabinets. And I was like, really? I mean, I had gone through the trouble to make sure all the trim that was formerly like this brown color was now this fresh white. And it was not necessarily that appreciated. The travertine, the beautiful travertine that I put around the fireplace, oh, that's just going to get dirty. And the hardwood floors that I probably really overpaid for, by the way, the same company that put hardwood floors in my house, I had it do it in this flip because I was like, hey, I want the floors to be nice. And they were beautiful and they were dark. And it was like, oh, the dark floors, they're going to show dirt, blah, blah, blah. So you have to pay attention to the professionals that tell you what it is you need for that area. If it's an area that doesn't have a lot of granite in the houses that sell quickly, but you put granite and then ratchet up the price because you think, well, I'm going to make granite, somebody's going to pay more. Maybe not. Don't do it. And by the way, it's not about winning the awards with how beautiful your house is and, whether or not Candy's Dirt, which is a great publication, I'm not, disparaging it, mentions the design and the avant-garde things that you've done with it. It's about whether or not you sell that house and make money so you can do it again. That is what house flipping is all about. If you want to be recognized for your creative talents, then maybe you do, design for homeowners, and those people will pay a little more. As long as you stay within budget, fine. But it's not about how amazing your design is if you can't sell it and make money. And that's kind of, yeah, trust me, I got burned there. Next slide, please. And then the last one, the Joneses don't have Jack. I am a firm believer. You do not compare your success by looking at others. And a lot of people, I have probably heard from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that say, I want to flip, I want to do what I see on HGTV. Those aren't apples to apples. You can't compare your progress to these house flippers on HGTV or YouTube or TikTok or whatever. You don't know what their crew is. You don't know what their experience is, and you don't know what their profitability is. And by the way, I have heard from some of those HGTV home makeovers or whatever. I've read articles about people that are like, that wasn't all it cracked up to be. Our house was a mess. They didn't do the whole house. They made it look pretty with the furnishings, but when they took the furnishings away, there were a lot of glaring quality issues in the house. So don't look at that as the, I guess, avatar for your success. That's about as real as looking at a woman that's had Botox and lip fillers and facelifts and saying, oh, she looks good for her age, but what she's saying is she uses this cream. Yes, she uses that cream, but she uses a whole bunch of stuff that she's not telling you. So don't mess up your success by following what they do. And avoid focusing on things that won't help your ability to sell. So there was my second property that I did. It didn't have room for a microwave above the stove, and it didn't have a dishwasher. But rents were rising, and so I went and looked at the other properties in the neighborhood that were renting well or selling well. What features do they have that the house I have does not? So in a very neighborhood specific way, and in the time bracket that I was trying to do it, what is considered an attractive addition? So adding the dishwasher and adding the microwave, so I had to change the configuration a little bit, really, really helped. I did not at that time convert the garage, but with that second house, now almost all the houses in that neighborhood have converted garages. So if I were ever to drop a lot of money in it, I'm going to convert the garage. So that I can get, right now it's a 3-1, I can make it a 4-2. And in that neighborhood, converted garages are very valuable. Garages, not as much. So do that. Determine all that up front and don't deviate from the plan unless you absolutely have to. And sometimes you might have to. So I'm trying to think, what's a great example when I deviated? Oh, I don't know how I could forget. Been working on a project up here in Paris, and it was a 3-unit that I bought. And I thought, oh, this is a quick renovation. And I was doing work that didn't necessarily require permits down in Dallas. And then made the mistake of using a trade that decided he was going to go talk to the city on my behalf without discussing anything with me. Ugh, frustration. And that quick little turnaround turned into an ordeal because the city got all up in my butt about it. Now, right now, I'm thankful for it. But that project went horribly awry because one thing I had to do was make sure there was fire rated drywall, which meant I needed to rip out stuff that I wasn't planning to rip out. But once I was ripping stuff out and not just using what was there, other possibilities came and has made it, I think, a better product, but that was not what I intended. So maybe one day I'll show pictures and slides and of what that transition has been. It was very painful. And then the last thing that's gone awry is I didn't get the appraisal that I wanted. So now I still have to pivot again. You might occasionally have to pivot. But if you give good thought to your plan in the beginning and you stay true to it, chances are you won't have to pivot so much that makes it a disaster. So anyway, those are all the strategies applied to house flipping. Let's stop sharing for a minute. Stop sharing. Here we go. So I can look at people. Does anybody have any questions? Would anybody like to share something? Because, you know, this is what it's about: sharing, learning, growing. So if anybody wants to add something to this or whatever, let me know. Shamir, let me know if anything's on Facebook or whatever, because I can't see it.
I have a question.
Please.
Now, from the time you got started, you know, from your early beginnings and stuff, to up until, at what point did you decide to incorporate yourself to protect your assets, to protect yourself?
That's a very good question. Let's see. Property 3. Property 3. Hold on, is that right? 1, 2. No, I'm sorry. Nope. Property 5.
Okay.
Property 5.
Now, when you first starting out, you know, should you do it in the very beginning or
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Do not buy properties in your name. Now, I will tell you this. The instruction I have been given from the real estate educational club that I started, they're like, what you'll want to do on your first 10 properties is get these conventional loans. So back in 2015, you had to have the property in your name in order to do that. Now they have DSCR loans, which stands for debt service coverage ratio loans, that are designed to go into your LLC. But then they didn't have those. And so what you do then is buy the property and then transfer it into your LLC and hope that didn't trigger the due on sale clause. So there's been a lot of innovation in the lending world for investors. But here's the thing. If you have other assets and that property's in your name and there's some kind of disaster or casualty or whatever, something that you're liable for personally, because that property is in your personal name, then that reaches across all of your assets. And real estate investing is a risky endeavor. So if you have other assets, put that dividing line, that protection against what you already have and don't want to put at risk and what you're now playing with. So if I had to do it all over again and talk to 2014 Juli, I would say, absolutely incorporate before you buy a single thing. But there are also financial products that weren't available back then. So if you're starting now, absolutely. Also, I would say start working on your business credit. As soon as you decide you want to invest in real estate, start working on your business credit. I didn't do that either. Wish I had. Learn from me. Don't do that. And by the way, one of the things I really like doing is sharing where I've messed up. So hopefully it saves y'all from messing up. And I think just about every possible mess up one could make, I've already done it. I don't think I've left many undone. So use my experience. I've messed up spectacularly.
That was a great idea you put out by saying that maybe someday we'll get to see some pictures of some of your projects that you've already completed or done or documented along the way to a finished product.
Yeah, I never really thought about doing it. Now, I don't know. I think there's a girl on here, Ashley. She was sitting with me one time and she was like, let's just make a video. So she made a video of one for me that's on TikTok, which I was really happy about. I think everybody's seen it. I've shown it to everybody. But she made a really good video that showed kind of like this house was a mess and now it's not. And I quite like that she did that. So I want to do more of that.
Ashley is the bomb.com. Do it and do it again over and over.
I know. Ashley's like, why don't you make videos? You need to do that. I was like, girl, I'm just trying to stay above water doing the projects. It's hard to remember to document the projects.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ashley.
I got one other question too.
Okay, bring it.
What do you know about micro flipping?
What do I know about micro flipping? Absolutely nothing. What's the definition? I might know something about it, but I know it by another name. Is that the same
Okay.
as wholetailing? No,
I'm not really sure what that is, but
what's
basically
micro?
micro flipping is doing like let's say for instance you come across a piece of property that you're interested in flipping, but you really don't want to put any time or resources in it. So what you do is you do what's called an assignment. You get in touch with the owner of the property, you assign it, which gives you the right to be the go-between the buyer and the seller, or the buyer and who's interested in flipping the
Wholesaling.
property.
Wholesaling? Is that what you call
Yeah,
it?
like
Micro
wholesaling,
flipping?
exactly.
Wholesaling? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wholesaling is awesome. I've done a little bit of it myself. And basically, if you're comfortable with getting under contract with that seller, then you can sell your contract. But you can also go awry, and you should definitely do that in an LLC or some kind of entity. I see people doing it in their personal name, and I'm like, ugh, do it in an entity name. But that is kind of like flipping, because you're not left with what is it, an asset, but you can build a huge business doing that if you're dedicated. And my issue is I'm doing a lot, but I'm trying to grow a team of people that want to do it for themselves, and then maybe they can throw properties my way. Because while I like that game, I'm very interested in, I like acquiring properties. That's what really gets me all jazzed up. But if you're looking for quick cash, wholesaling is certainly a way to go. And by the way, we've got some people that are working with me. I am meeting such wonderful people on this journey. And so Sharon, if you want to say hi, this girl right here is a go-getter. And she's trying to make some stuff happen. So I look at she's doing that.
I mean,
Hi,
hi, Sharon.
how are
Shout
y'all?
out, Sharon. How you doing?
Go, Sharon.
Doing,
I mean,
doing
I'm
just
meeting
fine.
some
Do like
wonderful
you.
people.
I'm good.
Act crazy.
So those are some good questions.
Hey,
What? Oh, who are you saying hey to?
Shantae.
Hey,
Oh,
Sharon.
hey,
Oh, it's
Sharon.
girl.
Boo.
I need to do
Miss
that.
you.
So I can get
I
fun
miss you too.
There's a question.
Anybody
Right.
have any more either real estate related questions or Pitranomics related questions?
Well,
I
there's one
actually.
more.
Oh, go ahead.
Right quick. During the, like you doing wholesaling, wouldn't that be a great way to raise funds? So when you want to go in and actually do an actual flip, that you can generate at least a lot of your own income, so you don't have to go out and, just do your first flip or whatever. You go out and wholesale some.
I think it's an awesome way to build some money, but keep in mind there's risks involved in wholesaling. And if you're doing it for the first time, it's just like doing a flip for a first time. Get a mentor. Oh, and can I just say, this is my pet peeve. There are all these classes about we can wholesale, you can make $100,000 in a month and blah, 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 and this and this. And if you do it a lot, you know what to look out for. So as an example, a lot of wholesalers are taught to use these 3-page contracts that don't provide a lot of protection for the seller or the buyer. That is not paper I want to buy. I want to buy the actual Texas Real Estate Commission's contract done well. So I know the seller's protected. I know I'm protected. But a lot of these people aren't taught how to do that. And it's still a contract that can come back and bite you in the butt if you don't know what you're doing. So yes, it is a good way to make money, but that's not where my primary focus is. Maybe after I get done with all the projects on my deck, I will spend some more time on that, because I'm getting close to burned out on projects. I feel like, oh my God, I've taken on too many. But let's see what happens. But yes, and where you are is a hot market. By the way, when are you joining me? You said you're going to join me. Get to it, bro. Okay.
I had a few things that came up along the way, but It's coming. I will.
Okay. All right. Who else had a question? Was that Shantae? Shantae.
I have a special guest who has some real estate knowledge as an investor, and I wanted to at least introduce her if she wants to say hello to Julie.
Where is she? Wait,
and
put
Justine.
the video on. Put the video on.
Let's see if she's still here. There she go. She just left the gym, so
Hey,
she
how's it
passed the
going?
baton. Yeah.
There, how are you?
I'm doing well.
So you're a real estate investor as well?
Yeah, part-time. I have a house in Minneapolis and a commercial building in Iowa.
She's like here, she's there, she's everywhere. Okay, well, do you have any comments or insights about what I've just shared?
I mean, I definitely thought the information that you shared was really great because because I know I made some missteps, and the way you brought it and the way you explained things, I was like, okay, that's how I should have done things.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you on here. I hope we meet up in person one day.
Definitely. But now I'm more set in what my answer is, because I have a house in Milwaukee that we're actually renovating, and we are working on a project plan, scope of work, because we weren't as organized as before. But I was like, no, we have to get organized, and this has helped a lot to confirm some of the things that I need to do.
And I will say one thing, I have some properties in other states as well. You can't expect what's going on in one state to happen in another. You're going to get tripped up. And so make sure your boots on the ground are solid and knowledgeable in those places where you're not.
No, definitely.
Yeah. And you know what? Not that this has to do with you, but I'm going to throw this out there. A lot of people like to go into business with the people they like, which is great. But make sure you go into business with the people that you like, that are experienced at what you're trying to get them to do, that have scruples. And, you got to add to that list, not just that you like them, but that they'll be successful for you to partner with. So it's not just about, oh my gosh, I love this person, she's great, and I just feel so wonderful talking to her, or I've known this person for 30 years. You can know them for 30 years, but if you've not invested money with them, you're just now getting to know them. That's a whole new person you're learning, and it's not the same person you knew before, because there's money involved. So anyway, any other questions or comments or whatever? I love talking to people. Thank you guys for being interactive, because this gives me energy and fills my cup when you guys ask questions. But if that's it, I'm going to say, love y'all. Have a great night. Oh, by the way, unmute and tell me, those of you that didn't comment, what you thought of the intro video. Was it too short, too long? Was it too loud, too this? What was going on with that?
Awesome. This was awesome. And every time I'm on here and look at your content and your screens of your what are you talking about? It was great. And it seems like it's getting better and better. I'm telling you. And I do like the Zoom concept much better.
I like the Zoom concept too. StreamYard has some things that are cool, but dang, it's tricky to deal with, right, Shamir?
I told you that video is not sad. That video is, the first one was so sad. This one is so much better and represents you way better.
You know what? That was Ashley says I should show my goofy side. And I was like, I'm not goofy.
Okay. You see all these faces in here looking at you like, yeah, okay, Miss Julie, all right.
Oh no, I'm not goofy. I'm just like all the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, it's about getting to know you, getting to know all of us a little bit better. because I think we all have a goofy side somewhere, a humorous side, definitely, because that's what I look for in people a lot of times when I'm making first contact to break the, to break the ice or whatever. Is so I search for the humor side of a person first, and also on the Zoom, your content and when you're showing it comes out a whole lot better.
Does it? Okay, well, Zoom it is. Oh, by the way, I am reading a book. I want to share this. It's called How to Retire Wild and Happy or something like that. I'll try and put that in the title and the link. But it had you ask a question, several questions. And one of them was, if work was not something you had to do, if money was no option, what kind of person are you? How would you describe yourself? Tell me who you are. And then the other question is 5 traits that are really great about you that have nothing to do with work. So not things like I'm organized or analytical. What are 5 things about you that are awesome? I hope you guys share that with me, because I was able to come up with those things like that. But I went around asking people this. I happened to be reading that section, and I was at a car wash getting my car detailed. So I accosted the other customers and I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And what are your answers? And too many people define themselves by their work. You can enjoy your work, but don't define yourself by it. Embrace the joy of being the beautiful person that you are, and be amazingly happy that you have these wonderful traits that somebody somewhere should appreciate. And by the way, let me see who's on here. Everybody that's on here has something amazing that I love about you. So I hope you recognize it in yourself. I hope you recognize something a little quirky and fun and special in me. And I hope we're building this community. So now I am going to go now because I haven't eaten. I'm getting a little hangry. So you guys have a great night. Mwah, wonderful week. Oh, by the way, next Tuesday, I'm out of country. I'll be doing Pitranomics from another time zone. So I might look a little like this, but I'll be here. All right. So take care. Have a great weekend. I love y'all. And bye.